Again, welcome to our new podcast, The Beautiful Game Codex. My name is Gilbert Vita, and today with us we have Steve, the GM, and also we have a coach here with us from United City FC. We're here to talk about a lot of things in terms of the American soccer culture, what it is like to be a pro in the US, and also what it is like to play in the American soccer system. Without further ado, I'd love for us to kind of like introduce ourselves, starting with the coach and then the GM, and then we'll kick off.
Sounds good. So my name is Coach Tarzan. I am the head coach for United City.
My name is Steve Hawthorne, and I'm the founder and owner, or co-owner, I should say, because this boy does have a part of this club, of United City FC Women.
That's amazing, amazing. It begs me to ask. I didn't know much about United City FC, but I do know Coach Tarzan because we played soccer together against each other and together.
Yep.
So what got you guys to start UFC, United City FC? Any of you can take it first.
Go ahead.
No, he can start because it kind of started with him. So
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
Uh-huh.
So, well, originally I had met Steve on the men's side. So he had a men's team also called United City that I played on originally, and that's when I first met him. During that time, I was helping as an assistant coach on a former team that was known as Internacional. And at that time, we were trying to do what we're doing now, except there was a lot of roadblocks because I didn't know the layout as good as I do now, and I didn't have somebody like Steve who understood the business side, all the little intricacies that were very difficult in the US. I knew of them, but I didn't know how to navigate through them. So during the process of me being on the men's team, I essentially talked to Steve and I was like, hey, I have a women's team. What do you think about partnering up and helping with this, idea? And then it's been, I want to say like 5 years now, at least something like that, 5 years, and rest of history, we're styling.
Whipping teams left and right.
Sometimes
we try.
Mhm.
Yeah, as he says, he came to me with an opportunity. My background was men's football, real soccer in England. I worked in the Premier League for about 15 years with players and clubs from Chelsea to West Ham. And when I came out to the US, I thought I was going to do something, in the sport, and then realized it was just completely different, everything, so I kind of didn't. And then probably 3-4 years into me being in the US, Tarzan came to me with an idea. Hey, do you want to? And I thought it would be kind of a short term, hey, I'll help you guys, kind of get out of the issues that you were going through at the time. And 5 years later, here we are, and yeah, still going and trying to change things as we do it.
Amazing. Yeah. It begs me to ask as well, like, moving from the UK, understanding the soccer system there, coming to America, the whole system here is different. What has been like your proudest moment with UFC? United City FC so
My
far?
proudest,
Yes.
I think, getting to 5 years, in honesty, when I started this team and when I started to really invest in the team and take it seriously, obviously I did my research, and when you Google, the longevity of clubs, in the US, it's like 2 years, before they kind of close. So that was kind of the fact that we're here 5 years later and we haven't changed the way we operate. We're not pay to play. We never have been, and that was what I wanted day one. And 5 years later, we're still, not a pay to play club. We're a talent based club. So I think the fact that we're 5 years on is probably my proudest moment, because win, lose or draw games, there's always the next one. So it's never going to be based on winning a championship or winning a game. It's always going to be kind of, where we are as a club and how we're doing it.
Amazing, yeah. I mean, and for you, I wonder what it has been like. That is an amazing story. It also kind of keeps the players coming back, knowing that it's just, we're here, we want to play, want to show passion. That's my take from that.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from the coach's side as well. Like, what has been your proudest moment? You started this team. You're here now, 5 years down the line.
Well, I wouldn't say I started it, but I helped facilitate it to now. So I would say, to be fair, I think my proudest moment with the club, um, I'm gonna say probably earning the respect and the trust from the players. I think that was probably the proudest moment, and that I would say probably happened maybe close to about a year ago
Mm-hmm.
when I kind of took over being the head coach officially. I want to say probably that was my proudest moment because I could tell that the players listened to me, they respected what I had to say, and they embodied the vision that I wanted. So I think for me, it was that. It's not the games, it's not winning, like Steve says, not the championship.
Mm-hmm.
It's gaining the respect and the trust that the players go, okay, this is what coach wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Win, lose, or draw. And for me, that's amazing. And like I said, since then, and as Steve said, we've been flying. So I think that's probably it for me.
I will continue saying amazing because I think that's what it is. You being a coach yourself, you started off as a player, so you cannot see things in a different perspective. Moving in, coming in as a player that has experienced that side of playing and wanted to go in, or sometimes not wanted to sub out. So you're stepping in and saying, you know what, I was there, I understand how it works. I'm bringing that with me, so everybody knows and kind of have that feeling. Yeah. With NWSL and expanding and the United Nations or the women's soccer team also setting standards high, where do you both see the women's soccer in the next 5 years?
So, look, yeah, the NWSL, is expanding. It's doing its thing. But what they do doesn't really help build the landscape of soccer in the US. I don't think any of the leagues do, because they're all privately owned. So nothing filters down. Nothing really helps the tier below it, or the one below that, and the one below that. And because they're so politically, skewed towards what they're trying to do, it kind of hinders the growth of soccer itself. So we've kind of stayed on our own path, done our own thing, and we're just, like I said, 5 years on, we're still doing it. I think the NWSL has done a lot for the sport, but it's also done a lot to line its pockets. So it's a business at the end of the day, and you got to look at that. But for us as a club, we look at the landscape and how we can create opportunities for players who are unseen. I don't think the NWSL does anything to help that. That's for sure.
Yeah, Coach, any?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's pretty much exactly what Steve said. I mean, the reality is everybody's just trying to one up each other. That's all it is. All these leagues, it's not about, oh, I got this player from here and I got this player from here. It's, if there's a partnership between them, they'll say like, oh yeah, this player's from the WPSL or from the UWS or two leagues, But other than that, they're not going to validate anybody below them, because then that would show that there is some sort of progress there.
Right.
And if there's some sort of progress there, then people are going to go, hey, why aren't you hitting them up for players? Like, you just got this, baller from there. And you can't do that, because again, the system goes around in a circle. It's specific to how it's run. It goes, for me, it goes, the youth clubs pay to play, college technically is pay to play. So like I said, it's youth club, pay to play, college technically, unless you're on a scholarship, you're still paying to be at the college and then play. And then until you become a pro, really, you're not paying anymore. So the goal is to try and get to that point, right? But the reality is, what is it, 0.01% even make it, even think about it, and I get that, especially as a player, because I've gotten to play professionally. Now, not here, specifically, but in the rest of the world. I've played professionally here. I think now it's only been a couple years, really. I've played most of my career outside of the U.S., and the difference is just astounding, because you got kids that are super young, but everywhere else, pretty much, it's, talent-based, like we're doing, and it's not about the money. It's about how good you are. And I remember specifically, I've said it before, where, when I was in South Korea, I would always train on the off season at this track that was across the street from my apartment complex. And every night that I would go and train, there was these two kids that would just be doing, cone exercises, speed and agility drills, all on their own, and their moms would be running around the track. Crazy. And then when it was time to leave, come on, let's go. And they'd be like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave, blah, blah, blah. And they're just super adamant about staying there, right? And it's so cool to see that, because the reality is, it's not like mom and dad are paying for them to play. They played for a club. I forget what club they played for. They had their jersey on. They were playing for a club.
Right.
It's talent based. I'm not paying a dime for it. But you see the passion, you see the love for it, and that's what drives that kid that's going to turn into a baller when they get older. Whereas here, it's like, well, I have to play good because my mom and my dad are paying for it.
Yeah.
You get that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't pay $5,000 for you to do that and sit on the bench and walk. Like, you get that conversation. Like, that doesn't build a footballer. Sorry, in my opinion, that just builds hatred. That's just going to get somebody that's just going to go, I don't want to do this anymore. You get burnt. How many kids do you see burnt out all the time? So many get burnt out, and they just play high school for fun, or they go play college for fun because they can. It's not building the sport. And sorry, safe to say, I mean, look at the national teams. That's just the reality on that for me. So
it kind of gives the motivation for them is different from the motivation of a player, that it doesn't have to be, they're not paying to play, they're playing because they have passion for it. Yeah. And I wonder, like, when you guys play against, like, for example, you played against NWSL team,
Utah Royals last week.
Yes, exactly. So when you play against those kind of teams and you guys held them pretty well, how does that feel for you guys? What does it say about you guys? Well, as a coach, how do you feel about that? As a GM, how do you feel about that? As a team collectively, how do you guys feel about all this?
Well,
what does it give you? Does it motivate you guys to keep pushing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the reality is, and I talked to a few of the players after the game about it, about maybe 6-7 months ago, I told the players, I was like, ladies, like, we're going to get high profile games. Guaranteed. We keep this up, we're going to get the games. We did. And it was great because I told them back then, I was like, look, if we had the same facilities, the funding, everything as them, I guarantee you we'd be a top 5 team in the NWSL. And it was funny because they all looked at me like I was crazy. They just sat there like, nah, there's no way. And I was like, I'm serious. I was like, ladies, I'm serious. If we had the same resources, I guarantee you we would. Right. And it was great because after the game, when we played them and we held them down, a lot of the girls were just kind of looking like, wow, that was NWSL. Like, that was it. Because the reality was, it wasn't like Utah held back and didn't start, girls that didn't usually start. The only real absentee from them was Ali Sentinor. That was it. And realistically, I would have done the same thing. I would have not let her play either. She's their star player. But everybody else was playing. All the new signings that they just got, they all played. And it wasn't like they were all together. They were staggered. So in the first half, you had 5 or 6 that were starters. And then the second half, you had another 5 or 6 that were potential or starters as well. So it was a 50-50 split. So for me to see that and to hold them, to realistically, in my head, I'm still counting it as 0-0 because the corner kick, the last second, like, ref could have technically blew his whistle. You see refs blow the whistle at corner kicks all the time. I was waiting for it, so realistically in my head I'm going 0-0 in a halftime. Yeah, free header in a way, like, okay, you have it, but still, even 1-0, everybody knows 1-0 to any pro team. When you think of us in the pyramid, realistically, let's just say in the rest of the world, we'd be like a 4th, 5th, 6th tier club. They're first. Everybody knows when that happens, 1-0, you're laughing. You're just like, oh my God. And at halftime, I told the ladies that. I was like, guys, like, we're doing amazing. Just so you know, like, okay, yeah, we're losing 1-0, so be it, but we're doing great. Like, we're holding them. Like, yeah, we played with the incentive of it's going to be kind of a park the bus counterattack style of play, which for me is great. I'm a counterattack specialist coach. That's how I was brought up and trained, So I love that stuff, but realistically, and they knew this, the only difference between us and them was the fitness. Realistically, that was it. It was the fitness. We had the technical abilities. We broke out at times. We got fouls because we broke out. Like, we had the opportunities. Just didn't have the fitness to sit on defense. As you know, as a player too, you're sitting on defense the whole time and you're sitting, and then you go and attack. Your legs at times are like, oh no, I can't. And we just didn't have that because, again, we train twice a week for an hour and a half compared to 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day, so you're running easily, 40 to 60 kilometers a week they are. You know, we're barely breaking 10.
Yeah,
You
their
know?
endurance is different.
Yeah, exactly. And that to me was fantastic because if
Right.
you look at the scoreline, 1-0 first half, 2-0 second half, that's a win in my book. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's a huge win, you know, realistically. You know, you could say they had chances and yeah, they did, but we shut it out. We blocked it, we stopped it. Goalie did fantastic. Our players did fantastic. There wasn't a single player that on our team that didn't work their butt off to try and do anything and everything they could. It was just at the end of the day, it was just the fitness. And again, like I said, after the game, it was great because the ladies were just looking around going, wow, like that was the level. And it's like, yeah, I told you guys this. I told you we could do it. Like we could. There is promise, you know. So for me, that's kind of how I felt about that. So, senior,
I'm happy to hear that from you. I mean, being a coach, it's a proud moment to see your team. I mean, obviously getting to play against a team that has been practicing day in and day out, and that's what they do for work. Versus you coming once in a while. It's almost like a Sunday league team showing up to play against the LAFC or LA Galaxy, you know, an MLS team, and you know,
and I've been a part of that too.
and, you know, I'm part of that as a player as well. Holding on until like, you know, like we're not breaking a sweat here, but okay, I guess they have to score because they have more endurance and more experience as opposed to you guys. Yeah, the GM, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game. I think a lot of clubs here in the US approach every game to win it. You know, but like that's the benchmark of the success of a club.
Right.
And I feel development is not really part of sport here because, you know, kids are there to win games, and, you know, they go from, you know, whatever ECNL, whatever it is, you know, high school, and then they got to go to college, they got to perform there, you know, and then when they get to if they get to a pro, they got to perform there. So I think the luxury that we have is, you know, we can play games and learn from them, you know. So games like that, you know, we approach it very differently. You know, we're not trying to go out and win it because, you know, it's delusional to think that an amateur team is going to play a club like that, you know, which is, you know, had a 70, 80 million valuation and will be competitive. I mean, it's almost crazy to think it.
Yeah.
So to go into those games wanting to learn something and figuring out a benchmark, that was what we went to do, you know, and whether it's can we defend for 90 minutes, you know, and what do we need to learn from that.
Right.
And, you know, that was the plan. And that's what got executed, and the scoreline kind of reflects that. And yeah, like you said, obviously they're going to have chances.
Right.
But chances mean nothing if they're not converted, you know. So I'm happy enough to you know, to let clubs shoot us all day long and not score. Okay, that's going to reflect in the scoreline too.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it was a good showing. We learned a lot, and we take that into the next pro game that we'll have, you know, and build game by game, slowly, and get to where we're trying to get to.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, and also just to add on top of that, as for experience level for your players, you know, you're playing against a team or players that are sitting in crowds,
Yeah,
huge crowds, and you're used to maybe a smaller crowd.
Yeah.
So when the pressure level is different.
yeah, no,
The way you
absolutely.
adapt to it is also different.
I mean, when you're playing pro players, I mean, we have some national team players
Right.
that are experienced and understand that, you know, but we have a lot of players who have never.
Yeah.
And to understand how hard a girl hits,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not going to see that playing low league, Sunday league stuff. You're only going to feel that and experience that when you're playing pros.
Right.
So those are the things, like I said, for us, it was all about benchmarks and what the girls need to work on, you know, collectively as a club, but also, you know, when they're not with us those 2 times a week, what do they need to learn on, you know, learn. So it was an experience, and that's what we're trying to get at this stage is experience to know what to work on.
Yeah, and talking of experience, I want to pull up one of the names, Michelle Rose. What impact has Michelle Rose had in your squad, and what makes her stand out?
I mean, she's been with us and maybe a bit prior, but for the years that I've kind of got to know her, I mean, her work ethic is phenomenal.
Right.
No question. she's 33 and still being competitive, not at the level we're at, but at an international level.
Still ambitious.
She's playing on the national team. She's getting voted, best 11 CONCACAF, during the qualifiers of Gold Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And for a girl to kind of go through life not getting any recognition until she's 33, but still having that tenacity, that will, that drive, that want to play high level football, that's an amazing feat in its own, and for me, it's why she's been our captain, and yeah, I mean, every player that we have deserves to be there. Michelle is one of them.
That's great. Yeah, that's amazing. And you guys, maybe I don't know if it's a philosophy, but the idea of free play, the idea of just come here and play because you want to play, is amazing. And having players like that in your artillery is amazing. I'm gonna ask you my next question, which is from the club perspective. What do you think needs to improve in the just U.S. soccer in itself? In order for the standards to
How long we got?
It's a long combo.
I mean,
we can just maybe touch on the women's side or maybe on the men's.
Yeah.
I have a much we can talk about it. Yes.
I mean, the truth is that on both sides, so much needs to change. Unlike Europe, where soccer, I'll call it, is pretty much the only sport you play, and as a fan that you watch, everything is driven towards that.
Right.
Here in the US, hey,